Let me start by saying this. Of course, enjoyment of film is completely subjective. There are plenty of people out there who are saying that The Last Jedi is the greatest Star Wars movie ever. And there are those that are calling kind of meh. And then there's me, where I have to say, what the f***? Okay, I'm going to try this again. Sorry, but this has been a difficult video for me to make. When I went to see Star Wars The Last Jedi on Thursday night, my first reaction, well, that was okay, I guess. But, well, something was nagging at me, or to put it another way...
I have a very bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Really bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
What?
The problem was the more I actually thought about the movie, the more I disliked it. Even just this morning, I was talking to a friend who really liked the film. By the way, if you know this man, you have my permission to punch him for liking this film too much.
Please note, Michael J. Crawford, a.k.a. the Anti-Checker, does not support, endorse, sanction, or approve of, or participate in any violence of any kind against fans of movies, even crappy ones. The movies, I mean, crappy movies, the crappy fans, it's perfectly okay to hit the crappy... Please note, Michael J. Crawford, a.k.a. the Anti-Checker, does not approve of the last part of the previous disclaimer, even if it was completely true.
Sorry, where was I? Oh, yeah. So I was talking to my friend Andrew, or we'll just call him Mr. Jerkface to protect his identity, about the film. And I told him that I didn't really hate the film. Then later, as I was recording my review of the film, I began to realize that no, I really do hate this film. This film kills the Star Trek mythos in almost every conceivable way. As much as it pains me to say this, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, is the single worst Star Wars film ever made, period. Okay, I said it. So now I have to justify it. So brace yourselves, because after the credits, I will be getting into major spoilers. And if you have not seen the film and want to, please, I implore you, do not watch the rest of this video until you have actually seen the film. However, I will promise you this. I'm not going to offer subjective comments like the story was stupid or the acting was bad. I'm going to be as objective as possible as to why I think that this is the worst film that the Star Wars franchise has ever produced. All right, so before I get into this, let me first say thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you like what you see, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, if you have any feedback for me, I would love to hear it, what you like, what you don't like. And of course, we can have our discussions about the various topics in question. And if you really like what you see, hey, consider giving me some support on my Patreon page. The link is below. I know that Patreon, a lot of people don't like the idea, but it's what would give me the resources necessary to be able to produce more videos like this. I really want to be able to focus more time on it, but until I get a little more support, that's not possible. But now let's get right into it. Now, right off the bat, I want to say something that contradicts pretty much every bad review I've seen thus far. In no way, shape, or form do I blame Disney for the problems with this film. Disney, as a company, when it comes to their various film divisions, tends to let the various divisions do their own thing. So Pixar makes Pixar films, Marvel makes Marvel films, and Lucasfilm makes Star Wars. The blame for the various problems with the new Star Wars films lays squarely in the hands of three people: J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and most importantly, Kathleen Kennedy. Kennedy is, of course, the current president of Lucasfilm and is the person most responsible for the new Star Wars push into gender politics. I do not know exactly how the relationship between Disney and Lucasfilm works, but if I could take over Disney for a day, I would fire Kathleen Kennedy tomorrow and put someone in charge of the studio that understands two basic things. One, how to make a great movie, which, by the way, Kathleen Kennedy does meet that qualification. And two, what is Star Wars? This is where she doesn't seem to understand in the most fundamental of ways, to the point that after seeing this train wreck of a film, she genuinely thinks that Rian Johnson understands Star Wars better than anybody ever, and so now he gets to produce his own trilogy of Star Wars films. So yeah, it's going to be a painful 10 to 15 years. Now, let me get one quick piece of housekeeping done right off the bat. If you are still watching this video, I am going to assume that you have seen the film and you do not need me to recap the plot for you. If you're just looking for spoilers, you'll get them here, but I'm not going to break down the entire story, so you will not get all the context. Now, before I start ripping into the film, I do want to point out that while I do stand by my prior statement that this is the worst Star Wars film to date, that's not to say that everything about the film is bad. In my view, I think that the visual effects were amazing. One of the action sequences was awesome. And overall, it was very well produced and actually very well acted. The problem with this film was in no way superficial, as the film looks great from beginning to end. So let's look at a few things that made the overall experience of the film bad for me. First of all, there's just these underwhelming, underdeveloped, or just plain dropped plot lines from The Force Awakens. And in no particular order, I'm going to go through a couple of these real quick. What happened to the Knights of Ren? There was a nice setup for the Knights of Ren in The Force Awakens, not mentioned at all here. They're just dropped like a rock. Who is Snoke? In The Force Awakens, Leia and Han talked about him like he's this really powerful villain, and then he dies like a bitch. Speaking of needless setup for characters who pointlessly die like a bitch, Admiral Akbar. Why bring him back just to kill him off like that? And Phasma. What was the point of setting her up as a total badass in the first film and then have her go out all Boba Fett style in this one? Oh, and what's with all the mystery about Rey? People have built up YouTube channels, websites, all sorts of stuff talking about who and what they think Rey is. And every single one of them was let down. Rey is just a nobody, which is kind of stupid if you stop and look at the way that The Force Awakens was set up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Rey has to be a Skywalker or a Kenobi or something like that. But in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren, Supreme Commander Snoke, Han Solo, and Maz Kanata all react to who is that girl, that somehow Rey, there's something unique about her, something special about her, something that we're not told, but that these characters know. In fact, one of my favorite moments, as far as that's concerned, is in Maz Kanata talking to Han Solo, and she's like, okay, tell me who the girl is. And right when Han is about to talk, they cut away. So it's like, ooh, big mystery that you get to get revealed later. But no. She's just some random girl with high midichlorians. So, yeah, whatever. Now, here's a question for you. When did Finn learn how to pilot? In The Force Awakens, it was kind of a major point of the plot that Finn did not know how to fly. He needed a pilot to escape from the Star Destroyer. He needed a pilot to escape from Jakku. He did not fly. He was an experienced soldier. He was not a pilot of any kind. Now, apparently, he just is for reasons. Now, force using. Okay. So a lot of people who were defending people like me who were complaining about the Force use in The Force Awakens were saying that Rey obviously got some kind of training in the past, but then she had her mind wiped out by Luke or something, which would explain why she was able to do the Jedi mind trick and telekinesis and stuff. And no, now we learn that she's just a nobody with no prior experience. But then after, just wishing upon the Force, she gets to use the mind trick better than Obi-Wan ever could. And after spending a weekend retreat with Luke, she's apparently now a Jedi master in both Force and lightsaber use. I would genuinely not be surprised if in the next movie, the kid with the broom in the last shot of the film that's using the Force to get his broom is shooting lightning out of his hands that can destroy planets. Which, by the way, next thing, why did Luke make a map to find him if the only reason he was on the island was to die? I'm genuinely stumped about that one. I mean, Luke created this map, obviously so that eventually, if needed, he could be found. But then he tells Rey that he just went to that island so he could die. And, of course, he gets his wish at the end of this film. And how did Maz Kanata ever get Luke's lightsaber? Sure, she said, oh, that's a great story for another time. And, of course, well, we're not going to ever get back to that. So, whatever. Now, also, of course, there's plenty of plot holes that didn't have to do with anything from The Force Awakens that are just in this film that I had a problem with. So, some of them are callbacks to other stuff from the Star Wars lore. Some are brand new. So we'll go through some of these in no particular order, although the last one I'm saving for last for a reason. So number one, if you can do a hyperspace jump to take out a much larger ship, why didn't the Rebels do this before? Some people said, oh, well, because it would be suicide. Yeah, but if you could use a single X-Wing to do a hyperspace jump into a Star Destroyer, you'd think you would get volunteers that would do that. Likewise, couldn't you rig up, I mean, we know that droids can pilot ships, so how about build some droids that just do suicide runs into them, then you don't have to worry about, people dying or anything. So, yeah, why isn't this a common tactic? Because apparently you can take out a ship many, many times your size, even though that shouldn't technically work the way the hyperspace supposedly works. That shouldn't have done any damage at all to the Supreme Commander's ship, let alone destroying all the other Star Destroyers around it for no particular reason. But if it does work like that, then hey, they should have been doing that all along. Number two, why didn't the First Order already just have a couple of their Star Destroyers do a quick hyperspace jump in front of the fleet so that they would cut them off and end the chase? Seems like a pretty simple tactic there. They may not be able to outrun them at sublight, but the First Order ships had plenty of gas, so they could have done a quick, light speed jump and game over. Next one. Why did Rose kill herself to prevent Finn from killing himself when in doing so it guaranteed that the First Order would be able to blast the door and kill everyone else? Now, granted, Rose didn't know that Luke Skywalker was going to show up ex machina and save everybody. So what she did by sacrificing herself to save Finn guaranteed the death of the entire resistance, and she was good with that. Next one. Why didn't Admiral, I'm going to probably mispronounce this, but I believe it's Admiral Holdo, not tell Poe and everyone else for that matter about their plan to cloak the small ships and go to the rebel base on Crate? There was no reason whatsoever to not let everyone know about the plan so that they could be ready for it. This would have prevented the entire subplot of Finn and Rose going off to find out that rich people are bad and horse racing is animal abuse and all that pointless stuff that we get. And if necessary, we could have still had Finn and Rose meet in some other way. Next up, how do you drop bombs in space? And how did Rose's sister breathe in the bomber after she opened the bomb bay doors? Now, I'm sure some people are going to come up with some techno excuse for this, like, oh, there's some, anti-magnetic field that teleports the bombs out of there. And, there's a force field there but none of that is displayed on the screen, and it wouldn't be that hard to do, especially with today's visual effects. You could very easily do something that would show that. The answer is simple. They wanted it to look like a B-52 bomber, and that's what they did, but that looked absolutely stupid. No, next one. Granted, this is kind of subjective. It's more of a taste thing. I think it was in poor taste, but whatever. Why did we need to see Luke milking the giant monster breasts and then drinking the milk? What was the point of that? I mean, it was just kind of stupid. By the way, speaking of Luke's little farming fun on the planet, how is it that Luke lifted his 500-foot-long fishing harpoon to pull what looked like was probably a good 150, 200-pound fish out of the water? And if he used the Force, why didn't he just use the Force to raise the fish out of the water? Wondering. By the way, why was this the only episodic Star Wars film out of all 8 that had no lightsaber fight? Now, I know a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, there was lightsaber action in this movie. Nope, there really wasn't. You had the beginnings of a fight where, when in the flashback sequence with Luke and Kylo, but they didn't actually fight. You just saw them ignite their sabers and get ready to fight. You had Luke do the fake out with Kylo at the end of the film, but they never actually fight. They're never actually in the same place. And you have Kylo and Rey back to back against the elite guards and slaughtering the elite guards like they were complete idiots, which makes no sense. I mean, I guess Kylo should have been able to at least take a couple of them on. But if these guards are truly the great badass fighters that they're supposed to be, then lightsaber, no, they should have been able to kill them. But instead, Kylo and Rey chopped through them like so much corned beef. So I know this one is kind of silly, but this is one of those Star Wars traditions that there's really no reason to break. Why is it that no one said in this film, I've got a bad feeling about this? It's not a necessary thing. It's just a fun little thing that's in every single Star Wars film. Even Rogue One has it. And it doesn't make sense to me that you left that out unless you're just trying to be different, which is, well, different, whatever. So next up, why are they trying to make it out that everyone who manufactures weapons is evil and uncaring, slave-owning, animal-abusing rich people, when they also make it clear these are the same people supplying the Resistance? So is the Resistance evil? After all, the Republic was around right up until the last film, and these people were obviously in the Republic, so does that mean the Republic was evil? Is everyone just evil now? I don't get it. Oh, and by the way, how did DJ sell out to Finn and Rose to the First Order? I mean, we know how he did it, but here's the thing. He told them information about their plan to cloak the transport ships and get away, and even gave them the coordinates. How did he get that information? I mean, maybe I missed it. Maybe there was some scene right before the stormtroopers came in where they said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to take these cloaked ships, so, you know, why don't you get off the Stardust? Oh, you're caught? Okay, never mind. I don't remember that scene being in the movie. Maybe I was just missing it, but somebody tell me if I'm missing something. But how could DJ possibly know when Finn and Rose could not possibly know what the plan was at that point? Next up, how is the First Order tracking the Resistance? It's not explained at all. I mean, they say, oh, they can track us through light speed. No explanation as to how, where that, you know, they just, well, that's impossible. Well, but they can do it. Okay. And that's it. And I'm saving the worst as far as plot holes for last. Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker, this is what broke the film for me, and my heart sank as Luke's story unfolded on the screen. Because what we learn here is that Luke Skywalker, the man who is willing to turn himself over to the Empire just so that he would have a chance to talk to his father and try to bring him back to the light. Luke Skywalker, who refused to kill Vader in combat because that was indeed his father. Luke Skywalker decided that when he thought it was possible that his nephew, the son of his twin sister and his best friend, his student, his youngest family member, might one day turn to the dark side, the only logical solution is to sneak into his room while he's sleeping and murder him. Wow. Just Wow. Now, here's a couple of things that I would have done a little differently, even if you wanted to keep the basic story of this movie. Number one, have Admiral Akbar, not Vice Admiral Holdo, pilot the ship into the supremacy. First of all, creating Holdo and then replacing Akbar with her was kind of pointless unless you're just trying to advance your political thing about girl power or something. Admiral Akbar was the captain of that ship. Admiral Akbar was a character who was set up in Return of the Jedi, and this would have been a great moment for one of the classic characters of Star Wars to go out with a bang, go out with style, go out as a hero. But no, Admiral Akbar gets sucked out the airlock while this new character who we don't know anything about, I guess we're going to let her be the hero. Whatever. Next up, I would not keep Poe in the dark about the plan. That made no sense. Speaking of Vice Admiral Holdo, why did she not tell Poe? You don't need to know. Why doesn't he need to know? He's on the ship. He's going to be a part of the evacuation. Everybody on that ship needs to know their plan. You don't just say, I'm sorry, it doesn't work this way. You don't bring a bunch of soldiers out to a battlefield and then wait until the battle starts before you tell them who they're fighting or what they're going to be doing. You tell them, it's called a briefing. You tell them in advance what's going on. If she had simply told Poe this, then there would have been no need for Finn and Rose to go on that awful side quest. And if you still wanted them to go on an awful side quest for some reason, then you could just alter it a little bit by saying, hey, they need access codes to get into the Rebel base. And the only way to get the access codes is to hack the First Order's computers or something. And, they could have done something like that. And it would have worked just fine. Or you could have been stuck with the original plan saying, hey, it would be better if we could jump away, so we'll try to do that plan, but if it fails, we're still going to go with plan B. So at least it didn't make Poe out to be a mutineer. I made no sense whatsoever. Finally, and honestly, this would have fixed the movie for me, even with all the flaws that I had with this film. Luke should have had a grand moment. Luke Skywalker deserved to go out as a hero. He was the subject of the hero's journey for the original trilogy, and if you're going to bring him back and you're going to kill him off, you need to do it in style. To simply have him, do a cop-out, I'm a hologram, tee-hee, you can't hurt me, and then die for no reason is completely pointless. If you have Luke show up, not a hologram, but Luke show up on Crate, and imagine for a moment, the walkers are coming in just like we saw, and Luke comes stepping out through that door just like we saw, and the walkers fire their guns just like we saw, and Luke uses the Force and protects himself from all that gunfire. He does his little move where he wipes his shoulder. That was a cute little moment. Then he looks up at the walkers, holds up his hands, and all the walkers' legs just collapse. And then Kylo comes down in the ship and faces off with Luke, and they have a real battle and have Kylo win. Meanwhile, Luke is buying time for everybody to get off the planet. He goes out a hero. I would have been cool with that. But having Luke just do this little cop-out thing, pointless. Absolutely pointless to have him in the film. I know I kind of touched on it a couple times, so unfortunately I can't really talk about this movie without talking about some of this politics crap. Let's talk about the politics for a minute. Overall, I am okay, generally speaking, with liberal or conservative politics being injected into fiction from time to time when it is appropriate to the story and genre. But this is just stupid. Star Wars is the hero's journey in space. It is classic fantasy. It is wish fulfillment. It is not political commentary. And trying to turn it into political commentary does four things to these films. Number one, it makes the films dated. It means that 20 years from now, people are going to look at these movies and say, look at those silly people that they're trying to insert those dated political agendas into it. Number two, it alienates people who may strongly disagree with the political position, which I know for a lot of people say, so what? But you know what? Then you're being an ass. Number three, reduces the enjoyment of the film for those that do not hold that political position. Not everybody has a strong disagreement with, say, the social justice crap, but that doesn't mean that they want it in their movies. Okay, there are people that are simply don't care. They're not political driven people, and they don't want politics in their fantasy films. Okay, I know it's hard for some of you to grasp, but that is absolutely true. And number four, and this is one that's really difficult for me, it makes it difficult, if not impossible, to have a rational discussion about the merits of a film like this. Because you know what? The first thing that happens when you talk about some of these things that are inserted into the film as political points is people will say, no, that's not true. It's not a political film. You're just reading too deep into it. Okay. So I'm reading too deep into the film. Fine. Let's take a look at 9 basic facts about the film, and I deny any of you to prove me wrong on any of these facts. And if you do, great, I will apologize. However, you'd have to prove a lot of them wrong for this to not be a politically charged film. Number one, rich people are all bad. It seems that only poor people have virtue in this film. Number two, rich people need slaves to do their work. Number three, rich people abuse animals for entertainment. Number four, rich people make money by selling weapons, so that makes them even more bad. Number five, white men are bad. Every white male in this film, with the exception of Luke Skywalker, is a space Nazi. And every space Nazi, with the exception of Captain Phasma, is a white male. Number six, women are almost all good. The only woman, the only woman in the entire film that does anything really wrong or mistaken is the one woman who sides with those bad white men, Captain Phasma. Number seven, non-whites are good. All non-white characters are heroes. That's a simple fact in this movie. And please understand, I am not saying I disagree with any of this stuff from a political standpoint or agreeing with it. I'm simply pointing out what's in the movie. Number 8, men are dumber than women. Now, this is an interesting one. None of the women, with the exception of Phasma, of course, being the one sympathizer to the white men that are space Nazis, but none of the women, but every male character does something really stupid in this film. Finn tries to abandon the resistance again. Poe refuses to respect the chain of command, putting people's lives at risk and actually mutinying. Luke tries to murder his nephew because he might go to the dark side. Hux, let's just face it, he's just a bumbling idiot. Kylo Ren is a murder machine, and Snoke, well, he gets taken down like a dumbass. Now, the closest you could come to any woman making any kind of mega mistake would be Vice Admiral Holdo not telling Poe the battle plan. But the way that the film kind of portrays it is that, well, Poe is the one making a mistake by not trusting his commanding officer. Now, number 9, this is the last one, and this is one I actually got from talking to some people about the other 8. Is that a lot of people praise the idea that the First Order is some kind of representation of the alt-right, which is honestly just more wish fulfillment from leftists. This is the thing. Extreme liberals tend to think of conservatives as Nazis, while extreme conservatives tend to think the same thing about liberals. You know, I know that a lot of people try to say this is not a political film. But with all that stuff in there, come on. If you were to put 1, 2, maybe even 3 of these facts into any film, you could probably chalk it up to coincidence. Or depending on the genre of the film, it might actually make sense. You know, if you have a film that is about rich people taking advantage of poor people, then obviously some of those are going to fall into place. But you know, to have all 9 of those in a single film, that is a little beyond coincidence. That is injecting politics into a story. And you're taking a classic story that people of all backgrounds, of all beliefs can enjoy and turning it into a political statement. In doing so, you're ignoring the established lore and changing it to suit your needs. Frankly, I'm disgusted with this film. Not because of the politics behind it, mind you, but simply because it's so obviously politically motivated. The sad thing is that many will probably assume that I'm some kind of alt-right men's activist who hates women and minorities because I do not, because I don't appreciate my childhood being taken and used for political gain. And frankly, if you think that, well, you have fun with that. I'm quite comfortable with who I am. I do not have time for hating people because of their gender, orientation, or ethnicity. Frankly, that kind of thing disgusts me more than this movie. But that's not what this channel is about. This channel is about science fiction, superheroes, other fun things, and I hate the fact that I have to get into a politically charged discussion to talk about Star Wars, which, in the end, is why I hate The Last Jedi.